Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Educational Resources for Virtual School Counseling. We're going to be waiting just a few minutes to allow people to log in, and we'll get started here shortly.
Okay, we're testing their sound.
Check. 1, 2, 1, 2. All right. Awesome.
We'll just be waiting one more minute for folks to log in, and we'll go ahead and get started here shortly.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Great way to spend a Friday morning.
All right. So yes, good morning and welcome to today's webinar, Educational Resources for Virtual School Counseling. Our presenters today are Dr. Pianta and Beatrice Nguyen. So before we get started, I wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. Today's webinar will be recorded and a link will be shared with all registered attendees after the presentation, including a copy of the presentation slides. In addition, we will have the presentation linked to both the CASC website and the COVID-19 K-12 counseling website currently in development. Although all participants are muted, we would still love to hear your response and respond to your questions. Please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. I will be monitoring these questions and we'll be saving time at the end of the presentation to answer as many questions as possible. With approximately 1,000 attendees this morning, we will not be able to answer every question, but we will do our best to get through as many as possible. At the end of today's webinar, we will be providing a web link and QR code so that you could kindly complete a presentation feedback survey. Your input is very important to us. Our presentation is scheduled to last about 90 minutes this morning. My name is Lesia Weglars, and I will be moderating today's presentation. I am the chair of the COVID-19 School Counseling Task Force. I am also a middle school counselor in the San Marcos Unified School District and a lecturer in the Department of Counseling and School Psychology at San Diego State University. I've had the pleasure of being a member of CASC for several years, serving as the CASC Emerging Leader in 2018 and as the volunteer committee chair for the CASC conference for the past 2 years. I wanted to say a special thank you to the sponsors of today's presentation, the California Association of School Counselors and the Wisconsin Counselor Association. The California Association of School Counselors represents the needs and interests of the 10,000 school counselors working in California schools. It is the largest state school counseling association in the nation. CASC works hand in hand with a large number of state-level organizations and advocates for the needs of school counselors and the students they serve with legislators and other policy decision makers. The Wisconsin School Counselor Association's membership of over 1,200 represents well over 50% of the professional school counselors in Wisconsin. WASCA is dedicated to empowering school counselors and is focused on providing quality professional development opportunities, supporting comprehensive school counseling programs, and giving one voice to professional school counselors throughout the state. I would love to acknowledge the hard work and dedication of the leaders at the helm of these two amazing organizations. Loretta Whitson, Executive Director of CASC, Ashley Kruger, CASC President, Stacy Eslick, Executive Director of WASCA, and Andrea Donegan, WASCA Board of Directors Chairperson. These school counseling leaders have been at the forefront of our vision to create a joint, multi-state, multi-regional effort to address the prevailing needs of school-aged children resulting from the coronavirus pandemic. The result of this collaborative effort is the COVID-19 School Counseling Emergency Task Force. The mission of the COVID-19 School Counseling Emergency Task Force is to provide accurate and timely information to school counselors, administrators, caregivers, and other school-based mental health professionals in the transition to virtual counseling platform. Our first step in meeting our mission to provide access to a variety of online resources is creating the COVID-19 K-12 Counseling Resource website, which is currently in development by a group of amazing school counseling leaders from across California and Wisconsin. Other state organizations are eager to join in this ambitious collaborative project. The website will be a source of guidance and easy to access resources in a variety of areas, including mental health, college and career, academics, and professional development in virtual school counseling. Today's presentation is just the beginning of the wealth of resources we are working hard to bring to you. Our goal is to support you as you are working tirelessly to find resources and lessons and engagement strategies as quickly as you can in order to support your students and families and colleagues as we adjust to our new virtual world. So without further ado, allow me to present today's presenters. Dr. Rebecca Pianta has dedicated her career to supporting students, parents, school counselors, and other educators by serving in various roles over the years, including a school counselor in elementary, middle, and high schools. She served as an administrator and adjunct professor. Currently, Dr. Pianta is the coordinator of counseling and student support at Capistrano Unified School District, where she oversees the school counseling program and behavior support services team. As a result of her diligent leadership, 5 schools in her district earned the recognized ASCA Model Program designation. She is also a lead professional development specialist for Hatching Results, serves on the CASC Board of Directors, and is a recognized ASCA Model Program reviewer. In 2019, Dr. Pianta was recognized as the CASC School Counselor Advocate of the Year. Beatrice Nguyen is currently a college and career counselor with Capistrano Unified School District. She has 13 years of experience working with students from kindergarten to adults. Prior to joining Capistrano Unified School District, she spent 10 years supporting students as an online school counselor. Her tenure as a virtual school counselor has helped Beatrice not only effectively use technology in supporting students, but also elevated her ability to connect with students in a non-traditional learning environment. She believes that working in an online environment will quickly enhance any professional's ability to pivot and adapt to a changing world. Dr. Pianta and B, thank you so much for being with us this morning. I'll turn the floor over to you now.
Thank you so much for having us. So let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone and happy Friday. Woohoo! So the objectives, hopefully by the end of today, you all will have an opportunity to learn the virtual school counseling, ASCA ethical guidelines, the benefits, limitations, tech tools that you could utilize, suicide prevention, as well as strategies for self-care. Really important. In addition, we will be sharing with you a wealth of resources that include sample video conferencing and group norms, school counseling program messaging that you can send out to your families, check-in forms, needs assessment, counseling referrals, virtual lessons, website samples, as well as lots of professional development opportunities. We are super excited to be here today. I know a few weeks ago when we started realizing that our districts were going to go on distance learning, we were in a panic, just I'm sure as all of you were, just because it was new to all of us. Fortunately, we were blessed to have B, who was a new school counselor in our district, as a virtual counselor. So in consultation with her, as well as doing our own research and collaborating with other counselors located in China, we were able to establish lots of resources that we were able to share out with our school counselors. And we're really excited today to be able to share some of these resources with all of you. So before we go ahead and get started, I wanted to kind of show you a quick video of really what it's like to be a virtual counselor. But in this case, it's a CNN news reporter. Here we go. Or actually BBC news reporter. Here we go.
Scandals happen all the time. The question is, how do you find those scandals? And what will it mean for the wider region? I think one of your children's just walked in. I mean, shifting sands in the region. Do you think relations with the North may change?
I would be surprised if they do. Pardon me. My apologies.
For the region.
My apologies. South Korea is probably the closest that North Korea have been severely.
Okay, we wanted to start it off because for me, when I envisioned going online and being able to provide services directly from my home, that's automatically what I envisioned because I saw this video a couple of years ago. And as you all that have kids at home, I'm sure can relate to it to some degree. The hope and what we're wanting to do today is at least provide you with resources to address some of these concerns, especially if you are at home with kids or even a spouse or roommates. So if you are like many of my school counselors, I'm sure you are feeling just like this. School counselors trying to keep up virtually with counseling their students, virtual admin meetings, virtual department meetings, virtual faculty meetings, emails, lessons, the mental health stability of others, their own children. You know, as counselors, we're like, we're good, we got this. But it is a lot. And I do want to recognize that this is definitely different. It's not virtual school counseling as you would know as usual. It's pretty much addressing a crisis. We are in a pandemic at this moment, and there is a lot of different things going on. And as school counselors, we're having to transform everything that we're doing into a virtual setting to be able to support and meet the needs of our students. So know and recognize that you are not alone, but know that you do have the skills, and a lot of what you have learned in school, a lot of the things that you have practiced within your profession is what is going to be transferable. And everything that you have done in your day-to-day life as a school counselor, those are the same skill sets that you can bring to the virtual setting. So be comforted and know and be calm that you have the skills, and you know your students. Your students that have been with you and have come to you at all times, you know, when they're in need, those are the same students that will probably be in need. In addition, you may end up finding out that you may have new students that are having issues. So initially, you may have had a lot of students in the beginning of the year dealing with anxiety. And now that they're home, they're fine. It's students who probably are more of the extroverts needing some of that social interactions that need a little bit more support. Or it could be those students who are at risk that need you a little bit more. So really, it's important to know that you have the skills, you know your students, even though it's a new setting, you've got what it takes. And as I said, we are joined today by school counselors and educators from across our nation. I think we counted over 10 states within our nation. So know that you're not alone. Almost everyone is going digital, virtual. So you can do this. I've included on here, and something that I like to practice is meditation, a Calm app. So if you click on the link, and just know that we'll be sharing the PowerPoint with you, you can go through a really quick, brief, for free meditation mindfulness activity. especially when you're in the midst of it all. Take a moment to care for yourself. In addition to this, I've also included on here a link to additional resources that all you would have to do is click on this link, and it will take you to a lot of different apps that you could utilize, again, for free. All you would have to indicate is kind of where you're at. Do you want to do mindfulness? And it'll pull up a lot of different activities for you to do tied around mindfulness. If it's anxiety you're facing or your students are facing, these are different apps that tie and relate to helping manage with anxiety. And there's lots of others as well too, including stress, pain, so lots of different opportunities. And again, we'll be sharing these resources with you. A little note, anytime you see this image of a chain here, know that the image or the text is going to be linked to a specific website. So again, in order to access it, all you have to do is click on it, and it'll take you directly to that website. So ASCA ethical guidelines, standards, really this is what helps us as school counselors know what we need to do to support our students. Fortunately, ASCA has been able to provide us with ethical standards tied around virtual counseling. So we are ensuring that we're practicing best practice. So the first ethical standards tied around virtual counseling is really adhering to the same ethical standards in virtual distance setting as school counselors as you would in face-to-face setting. Again, there's not much that really changes. So again, the same things that you knew during your face-to-face settings with students is the same thing that you're going to be practicing virtually as well too. Recognize, acknowledge, and inform students as well as parents, guardians of the challenges and limitations of school counseling. So one of the things as a school counselor, it's important to establish trust with your families. In order to do that, it's important that you become transparent and you are really honest and upfront with your families about what this form is going to be like. So we've included for you here some benefits and limitations to virtual counseling and what it entails. So that way your families are aware. We do recommend you include this on your website when you send out communications to your family. This could also be included if you have some sort of a consent. You could associate this with your families as well too, so that way they have that information. But it goes over again the benefits. So it's having virtual counseling, it's flexible. Sometimes some students feel a lot more comfortable. However, there are limitations. As you all know, privacy is not guaranteed. A lot of our students live in homes with multiple siblings, or they could have other families living in homes with them as well too. So confidentiality and privacy, you can't guarantee 100%. And you know, with technology, there's always technology issues. So it's important to note that ahead of time and let your families know that you'll do anything possible to try to rectify that issue. So we've included this on here for you so that way you could use. And again, it's always helpful to be as transparent as possible. And to let them know too, if it's a crisis situation, you know, sometimes, you know, it's really important to get additional support in a crisis situation, and we'll go over that in a moment, but it includes that information on here as well too. So it's also important to implement procedures for students to follow in both emergencies and non-emergency situation when the counselor is not available. We will be covering that in a moment, but it's really important, if you haven't already, if you have a counseling team, to meet with them to establish that plan of what's going to happen in case of emergencies, and making sure that your administrator is on board and supportive of that. And it aligns with your district protocol. It's also important to recognize and mitigate the limitations of virtual school counseling confidentiality, which may include unintended views or recipients. So Los Angeles County Department of Education included a really great guideline for you that I've included here, that again, all you have to do is click on it, to kind of share with you the difference between HIPAA as well as FERPA. Within an educational setting, we all operate under the FERPA guidelines. I know there are some clinicians that work within school setting, but if you're in a school setting, we operate under the FERPA guidelines. And so making sure that what you do truly does align with that. So again, we've included information on here tied around confidentiality for you to keep in mind, because we always get the question, what forms are FERPA compliant? So some of the things that we're going to be sharing with you today truly are FERPA compliant. And if you are a clinician having your own private practice, know that HIPAA did kind of flex their regulations to allow other forms that they haven't in the past, just because they understand it's a crisis situation and more people do need support. In addition, it's also important to educate students on how to participate in electronic school counseling relationship to minimize and prevent potential misunderstanding that could occur due to lack of verbal cues and inability to read body language. So we know that because it's virtual, you're not going to be able to see everything body language wise as you would if you were face to face. So again, as much as you can set specific guidelines in place, it will really help you with building that trusting relationship with your students. And we'll be sharing some examples with you a little bit in a little bit. So the first thing that I wanted to go over, because the first thing that came to my mind is, oh my goodness, we have a lot of students who are at risk. What's going to happen to those students, and how are we going to be able to provide supports to those students? So within our district, I told my school counselors, pretty much you follow the exact same protocol. Our protocol has not changed. So it's really important that if you have not had the discussion with your district, to start engaging in that conversation now to find out if any modifications need to be changed, but really important to follow that. In addition, you want to make sure you have your emergency contact information in the case that students don't have easy access to you. They know how they can be able to reach out for further support, whether it's including the suicide hotline as we have here at the bottom of your screen, on your website, in your email signature, in your Google Classroom, all the different places, just so that way students know in case of emergencies what supports they can get. So again, it's really important to follow your suicide prevention protocol. Hopefully your district already has it, and meet with your site team to be able to say, okay, how are we going to address issues, crises that come up? One of the things that we did within our districts is some of our counselors don't have partner counselors within their school. Like our elementary school counselors, we only have one for each school. So we went ahead and had them partner up with each other. And the reason why we did that is because in case you happen to be on a call and the student is suicidal, it's really important to ensure that you stay connected with that student and you don't disconnect with them to try to get them help. And so what our partner counselor would do is while you're on hold with that while you're talking to that student, text your partner counselor, or even three-way with them, but really text your partner counselor to let them know to go get help and support for that specific student. So again, if you have that established communication and plan ahead of time, it really does help you to make sure you're staying connected with that student. Because what happens is if you hang up on the student to try to get them support, something may happen to them. So you want to make sure you keep that support and keep that supervision. For some, it may very well be, again, you three-way the counselor in, you then go get help. But again, in our district, we decided to just have the person who's talking to the student, have that person text their partner counselor so that partner counselor can go get the student further help. Always, always, no matter what, it's really important to notify the parent or the guardian, no matter what level the student is at, whether they're low, moderate, or high risk. That is always crucial. For some parents, they may be working if they're essential workers. For some, they may be at home with that student. So no matter what, again, follow your district protocol, but ASCA always states making sure you notify parents and guardians. And it's always important too, after the suicide risk assessment, and you follow up with the student, making sure you're providing resources, even when you're making that connection to them to get them further support, making sure you're providing them with resources, the families with resources, so that way they can get further support. Within our district, again, follow your district protocol. For us, if it's a student who's really at risk, we contact the parent to let the parent know. And then if it's really high risk, we actually have the police do a welfare check just to make sure that the student is okay. But again, that's within our district protocol. So again, follow your district protocol. But within ours, we have our police officers for those really high risk cases do welfare checks. And again, we still notify the parents no matter what. And then afterwards, always making sure you are following up with the student as well to check in to see how they're doing. We've included on here, our district utilizes the Columbia protocol for suicide risk assessments. Again, follow your district protocol. They have a really great training for educators and really just community members in various different settings. So if you're not really skilled at this and you would like to get professional learning while you're on break, this is a great opportunity to gain professional learning in conducting suicide risk assessments. But they actually train you on how to utilize their specific protocol. But again, if your district already has a protocol, it's really important to follow yours. And again, if you are not as trained, really pass it on to whoever within your district is trained. But if you're looking for training opportunities, like I said, this is a great free webinar on their website that you're able to get that information. And the tool that they have is really quick. It's a screening tool. It asks about 5 questions or so. And then you're able to kind of figure out kind of where the student is at to get that information to whoever you think would need it. Gonna pass it over to B.
Thank you, Rebecca. Can everybody hear me? Can I just get a quick confirmation? Wonderful. Good morning, everybody. Awesome. You guys are awesome. Okay, so I'm going to discuss direct services. Obviously, as school counselors, that's a huge component of our job. And obviously, we will be providing direct services online, right? Before I go into direct services, I want to acknowledge that at this point, many of us are still working on the program management phase of rolling out our virtual school counseling program. And if you're doing that right now, more power to you. By no means should anybody feel any pressure to be the perfect online school counselor within the first, 2 or 3 weeks of rolling this out. And I think a lot of us put that pressure on ourselves, but just know, like Rebecca said earlier, that you have every tool in your toolbox that you need. You've been a counselor this whole time, right? And so give yourself some grace and some space to plan out what you want to do, to learn those tech tools, the new technology that you want to learn. And then once you're ready to do that, you can start rolling out the direct services to your students. It's important to remember that during this time that creating a climate of care and support is paramount in our jobs, right? We want more than anything right now for our students and their families to feel held by their school community. And that's part of our job and our role as a school counselor. And so, keeping that in mind as we're doing everything, as the motivator for everything that we're doing and trying to learn, is a really great way of not, losing steam and feeling totally demoralized and defeated. You guys are all amazing. There's so many of you in here today just waiting and looking for new things to do and some answers. So just know that you're doing everything right and you've totally got this, okay? But before we can really start rolling out all the fun stuff, and I know I've been to webinars, I know that you guys are rolling out some really cool stuff already, but we need to address students' basic needs, right? Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We need to make sure that all of our students, but especially our most at-risk students, are receiving the very basic things that they need in order to learn, right? They need to have a roof over their head, shelter, and they need food. They also need internet access, right? Those are kind of 3 things that I think of when I think, wow, we're transitioning to distance learning. What are my kids going to need, right? And so one of the first things that we might be rolling out, that you might be rolling out, is directly trying to support those students, our disadvantaged students, our at-risk students. You know who they are at your site. You might have a really hefty load of those students. You might not have as many. It just depends. But we're talking, students who are on free and reduced lunch, right? Our English language learners, our foster youth, our homeless students, right? Students with special needs. So that's already a pretty expansive list of students, but that's where we can start our targeted interventions and our targeted outreach, right? So you'll see that one of the first things that we have on the direct services list is direct check-ins with your most at-risk students. We're in triage mode right now. We're in counseling triage, and this is pandemic triage, right? So we are going to try to reach out to those students to make sure that they have what they need so that they can begin to access learning. If that list is very big for you and you're like, oh my gosh, that's hundreds of students, then we can maybe disaggregate that data a little bit more, right? And we can start looking within that population of students who have just gone off the radar, who have not logged in at all to do any kind of classwork, who have just are MIA right now, right? You haven't heard from them, teachers haven't heard from them. That might be the best group to target within that at-risk group, if that makes sense. So if you want an idea of where to start, that might be a really great place to start to target that support and to be very intentional with the way that you're reaching out to your students. So some things to consider when you are checking in with these students, right? If you're doing a phone check-in with them, which is advisable, right? We want to make sure that we're working with our bilingual community liaison, if you are lucky enough to have one, or bilingual staff. ASCA does recommend that we use translators who have been vetted or reviewed. So staff should be able to fall under that umbrella, right? So use who you have in your school at your site to make sure that we're reaching out to our English language learners. You can maybe carve out and agree with that bilingual staff member or liaison maybe 2 hours on one day a week to target that group of students to make sure that they're getting the proper outreach in their native language if possible. So we're reaching out to families, we're calling them, we're checking into these in with these students who have kind of gone off the radar, right? We want to make sure that we speak to the parent to check in with them to make sure that their basic needs are being met, get a gauge of how they're doing to see if they need any resources and let them know basically that you're there for them, right? That you are a support and, you know, explain the limitations of what you can do in an online setting as a counselor and explain that the confidentiality risks that might occur in a video conferencing room, right? Those are things that we want to make sure that they understand. But really, the bottom line is that you're communicating to them that you are there to support them and their child. After that, you can obviously check in with the student as well, make sure that you've got their buy-in, that they are agreeing and consenting to talk to you, and then get a sense of what they're doing. What does their day look like, right? Get a sense of what their schedule is looking like so that you can gauge what kind of support they might need from you. And again, bottom line, hey, listen, I'm here for you. This is how you can reach me. You can go to our website. These are all the resources that you have at your fingertips. And then you can decide if you need to check in with them again or what resources they might need, okay? And this is very important. Every communication that you make, whether it is successful or not, you should be logging that in your student information system. If that's your policy at your site and for your records, you're doing your due diligence by reaching out to these students. Yes, some of them will not be responsive. That is the nature of the online world, but all you can do is reach out to all the numbers that you have on hand, email all the email addresses that you have on hand. And if it's within your resources, perhaps mail something home, right? Paper will get people's attention. In my experience as an online counselor, if I got desperate, they got mail. And when they're getting inundated with email, suddenly getting something in the mail is a little bit more pressing to them, right? So that's a recommendation if you cannot get a hold of a student. Perhaps mailing a packet of resources home might be an option for for something like that, for a case like that. So if they do need more resources, on this slide, you'll see some links to specific resources that address very basic needs of students, okay? We're sharing with you the California Meals for Kids app link. That's an app that families can download and that you can download as well to locate where students can access free meals for themselves, for their siblings. I believe that most states are and school districts are providing these meals at specific sites within their district. So that's a really great resource for them. 211 is a catch-all in California. Families can dial that for immediate support on everything. There's a website and a number that they can dial to get somebody live on the phone for shelter, for tax preparation purposes, for unemployment, for food. I mean, it really is a catch-all for everything. So that's a really great resource for your families. For Wisconsin, I've linked 2 links for you. One is regarding meals and other supports for families in need, including shelter. And then we're also providing a link for what internet services are available for people in Wisconsin, because I know that this is in partnership with WSCA. But I know there are many other states here, and all states, I'm imagining, are providing some level of internet for your students. So keep that in mind. I know Cox, Comcast in California are offering free internet for people. So those are going to address some of your access needs for your students, for your most at-risk students. So that was a lot of information for the check-ins. It's a big part of what we're going to be doing, which is why I spent a little bit more time on that. I'm not going to spend as much time on these other ones just because it's not going to be as pressing. But after we do that, after we address our at-risk students, we can then start addressing all of the domains that we address as counselors, right? Career, social, emotional, academic. How do we do that? Google Classroom is a great place to start. It's a great way to deliver content to targeted groups of students. For example, if you were planning on going into, your 10th grade English classes to deliver career curriculum, you can bundle that up really nicely into Google Classroom, assign that to your 10th graders, and make it interactive by toggling it with a live chat. Maybe assign the work and say, hey, listen, we're all going to meet on Friday and we're going to talk about this together in a live chat. We're going to have a Q&A. That's what my team did on the college and career counseling side for some of our workshops that we're doing. So you can certainly do that with a Google Classroom. Webinars are a great way to present information to your families. If you had a presentation planned for the spring, you can still roll out that presentation. It's probably in a PowerPoint format. And so you can easily deliver that online in a webinar setting, and you can have a recording afterwards to send to all families who weren't able to participate. And Zoom will you can not show the participants if you're using something like Zoom. So it will be anonymous and confidentiality won't be a problem, so they won't see who the participants are. But webinars are going to be a great way to connect with your families and to educate them. Just as an aside, you can use online meeting rooms for really fun stuff like Hangouts, talent shows. I did an award ceremony every semester. So for your younger kids, right, if we have elementary and middle school in the house, which I know we do today, they love those things. Like award ceremonies are really fun. You can have a slide and every slide is a student's photo and their name, and you could read off the names, and the students and the families get really pumped on it. So if you want to do something like that, especially for your younger students, it's a great way to engage them and to make them feel a little bit more just normal in this very weird time. Telecounseling is something we will be providing. For many of you, it might give you some level of anxiety, but don't worry. Understand that there are limitations, but that you can fully do this and that you're fully capable of doing this. And, given even despite the limitations of not having them in front of you, it's possible. In my experience, the two primary ways that you're going to deliver this is via phone or via video conferencing. I know a lot of you out there are very worried about confidentiality, and that is going to be a limitation of telecounseling. And that's something that we'll share with our families, and you should be sharing with them prior to delivering the counseling, right? And every district will have a different policy. If you're concerned about confidentiality, in my experience, what my students liked to do was to meet with me in a video conferencing room. They would have headphones in, so only they can hear me. Nobody around them can hear me. And instead of responding to me verbally, they would actually respond via chat. And in that way, it's much more confidential, and students actually prefer to do that. They're very comfortable chatting. And so keep that in mind as an option. That's one way of communicating with them as you're checking in with them and meeting with your students for one-on-ones. Open office hours and drop-ins are going to be huge in establishing that culture of care at your site. So they're a great way of just being available, right? You are available in your office for students coming into your office crying in the middle of the day, you're putting out fires. This is their way of feeling like they have that outlet throughout the day, whether that's 1 day a week, 3 days a week, 5 days a week, whatever you have the bandwidth for, whatever it is, just having it at all is letting the students know that you're there, that your door is open, right? And that's what we want to communicate to our families, is that we are there to address their needs, you know, during the day, and they can come to us when they need us, right? And again, based on your bandwidth, we all have our unique limits, and that is perfectly acceptable, okay? And to make it confidential, you can actually create a waiting room in a place, in a platform like Zoom, so that students can stay like you were in a waiting room prior to jumping in today, right? They can actually hang out by themselves. When you're ready for them, you can admit them in one at a time into your room. So that way it's very confidential as well. Okay, so psychoeducational groups, a touchy subject, right? Groups are hard. Groups are hard online. There are obvious limitations and concerns surrounding group counseling online, especially with regards to confidentiality. Per ASCA, right? ASCA indicates that it can be done, but counselors, right, in collaboration with their admin, have to weigh out the confidentiality considerations with the need and the purpose of the group. So that has to be a site-specific decision. It's possible. I did link to an article by the American Counseling Association, and it is a really cool paper on delivering group counseling in an online setting at a public online high school. It's a really great paper. I highly recommend reading it to understand the limitations of group counseling online. And also, it's a great resource to give to your admin, right? If they're pushing groups, or if they want you to deliver groups, this is a great resource for them to understand what it looks like and what are some of the limitations of the issues that you'll encounter, such as attrition, right, and engagement. You're going to lose a lot of kids. They're not going to stay engaged, and it's very hard to engage students online. That's why we mentioned psychoeducational groups specifically. If you are going to run a group based on a needs assessment, educational groups are a nice way of providing information without digging too deep, if you will. Some alternatives, just to let you know, to group counseling might be a webinar to a targeted group on just basic information based on their needs, right? Perhaps inviting a targeted group of students for a hangout where they can chat with you and play online bingo for the younger kids. You can even make the bingo tiles little coping skills, right? You can make it kind of fun, but not within the context of an intensive group session or multiple group sessions. You can assign a Google Classroom assignment and then follow up with a live chat like I mentioned earlier. And Base Education is offering a suite of free online SEL lessons right now. If you sign up, you'll have a district-specific login for your students, and they can actually get SEL curriculum delivered to them. They can go over lessons on their own or guided with you in a one-on-one. And it's a really great resource. I highly recommend it. I've looked over it. So if you want to check it out, that's Base Education, and they're an SEL curriculum provider. So that was my bit for direct services. We're going to go into engagement in a little bit, but I'm going to give it back to Rebecca right now for indirect services.
Mentioned some of the things that you would be doing a lot is providing community referrals. At this point, there's lots of changing needs of your family, so you'll be doing a lot of that. I've also actually linked to a resource called Onward California. If you're located in California, it has a wide array of different types of resources for families, and helps them specifically if they are unemployed, to help with their skills, to help with childcare, a wide array of different things in finding jobs. In addition, you'll also be doing a lot of consultations with parents. This is new for them too, having their kids with them all the time. Some of them are probably at home working as well. And so they will probably need a lot of guidance on how to provide that support to their kids. For staff, this is going to be new for them in terms of classroom management and not really understanding how to set expectations in a virtual setting. So you'll be doing a lot of consulting with them, kind of sharing with them how to set those expectations. We'll be sharing with you in a moment that you could share with them as well too. Lots of emails, lots of responding to voicemail messages, and also meeting with your administrator is going to be huge on a regular basis. It's really important to have them be on board with anything that you're rolling out, getting their feedback, making sure that what you are doing aligns with what they're doing, especially when it has to do with communication. Parents are being inundated right now with lots of emails, lots of voicemail messages. And so if you and your administrator can come together and decide on, one main message to send out that has all the information out there, it will definitely help with making sure that the information your family is getting is not overwhelming. And also engaging in professional learning. This is a perfect opportunity. There's a lot of great webinars that we'll be sharing with you at the end to really hone in on your skills, not just your regular skills, but really skills too to prepare you for virtual learning. So this is a great opportunity for things maybe that you didn't have time for previously to be able to do now. So B, let's find out, how is it gonna look different on an online setting?
So obviously when you're online, you're going to be able to provide a lot of direct services, and you're probably going to be on the phone a lot, or in a video conferencing room a lot with your students. The beauty of being online is that you'll be able to reach a lot more students. Because you're not dealing with instructional time per se. Students are obviously doing work in school, but as counselors, we do want to take into consideration at all times instructional time, and pulling students out or going into classrooms. And now you have much more freedom to reach out to your students, which is really nice. But expect to be providing a lot more by way of direct services in that regard, because you have a lot more freedom and a lot more space to meet with students and pull them in together, whether that's in a group or individually. I'll give you an example. When I was counseling, I had an at-risk caseload of about 125 students that I really wanted to connect with, that I wanted to educate on various things. And so I was able to call at least 25 students a day, dedicate time to just dial them one by one, introduce myself, establish a rapport, get a sense of where they are. And I did that for weeks. In fact, I did it for an entire semester where I checked in with them, and that was just part of my day. And so if you do feel like you have a daunting list of students, just know that it's possible and that you can absolutely reach out to these students, and it's much easier because there are just less physical logistics to think about and to consider. In addition to that, right, you're going to be emailing and calling a lot. Email is going to be the primary way that families are going to be reaching out to you right now, and it's probably very overwhelming. And they're just remember that they're worried, they're nervous. They want to be supported, we all are. And so my recommendation would just be to try to get back to them as soon as you can. Set, a time limit for yourself. For me, it's within 24 hours, I get back to families. I carve out time in my day to be able to respond to those emails to make sure that they're feeling supported by their community. Again, this is going to be based on your bandwidth and your limits as a counselor, and that's perfectly fine as long as you're getting back to them, right? But definitely expect to email a lot more. If you want to set up an auto response or an auto reply after work hours, let's say you're done at 3 or 4, which I feel like all of us are working like just throughout the entire day at this point. But if you should be setting limits. And if you want to set up an auto response to emails during like non-office hours, it says, hey, thanks for reaching out to me. Go to our website for resources. These are my office hours. These are emergency, contact lines that you can call if you're struggling right now, right? If that makes you feel better, then by all means do it. If that's going to allow you to take a break and to step away from your work and separate work and life, that's probably very important for you for self-care. But don't be shy about calling students. I know you're not, but make sure that you're trying to reach them at all the numbers that you have, at all the emails that you have, because if you're having a student not respond, if you're having trouble with that, we just need to make sure that we're tapping into every contact source we have for them. And again, maybe consider mailing out to those really special cases that are just not responding at all. You are going to be consulting a lot with staff and parents. You don't have to walk to somebody's classroom to talk to them. You can shoot them a quick email or have them on the phone. So there will be a lot more consultation, especially now especially because we want to make sure that all students are engaged in learning. And how do we do that? We want to make sure that they're logging in and that they're completing assignments in their classes, right? And so it's important to collaborate with your staff. Maybe in a staff meeting, you can devote 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes on helping them identify, you know, factors that might indicate that a student is at risk so that they can notify you, right? Maybe troubling themes in a writing assignment is something that you can discuss so that they can pass it along to you to check in with the student further. But that's the kind of consultation that will be really important during this time, is educating your staff on what to look out for so that you can then pick up with the student and support them. And obviously community referrals are going to be huge right now. Like we mentioned earlier, we want to make sure that these kids have a roof over their head and they're being fed. So the resources we mentioned earlier are a great place to start. And then once they have those, making sure that they have internet and they're able to get going is going to be important. So you guys already probably all have community resources on deck ready to go. So just have those ready and posted on your counseling website for an immediate resource for families.
One of the things that we did, just because I know there are some places in different states that are completely shut down, we actually had one of our interns as a project start reaching out to our community resource list to see which ones were still open. So if you have interns, that's a great project to have them do, is kind of follow up with the community resources that you all already have to see which ones are actually still working. And if they're not working in the same way, what would be the best way to be able to provide that support. B, I think you're on mute.
I am on mute. Thank you for that. So we know that we're going to be engaging with our students and that we're going to try to reach out to them. So how are we going to do that? How are we going to connect to them virtually, right? There are many ways. Google Classroom is a great way to connect with your students to deliver lessons, right? It's going to be a really nice way for you to bundle content for specific groups of students. We are linking to a suite of curriculum thanks to Redondo Unified School District, Redondo Beach Unified School District in California. They're kind enough to share these resources with all of you. It's amazing curriculum and lessons that you can roll out with your students right now. So again, if you see the hyperlink, just know that that's a resource for you. So thank you, Redondo Unified, for that. We really appreciate it. But Google Classroom is obviously one excellent way to connect and to deliver your lessons. It's bundled up nicely and you can use it just in a multitude of ways as a resource for guided counseling, specifically for one student or for big groups of students. Messaging on your counseling website is going to be huge. That's one of the first places that people go to look for information, is obviously the website. That's where I go, right? When I'm trying to look up something. And so making sure that your website is up to date with how families can reach you right now in this virtual setting, when your office hours might be, what events might be coming up, and again, emergency contact information, hotlines, crisis text lines, resources for food, shelter, and internet. Those things are things that you can post on your website to make sure that families have that at their fingertips, but also so that they know that they're being supported and that they have this one-stop shop place to go for all of that information. You're obviously going to be emailing with families. One thing that I like to do, that I always do to this day, is I like to personalize my mass emails. And it sounds like a lot of work, but it's actually not. If you're familiar with mail merging, it's a great tool to use to actually personalize these mass emails that you're sending out to families, right? So instead of just saying, dear, CUSD families, you can say, dear Jenny, this is Mrs. Nguyen. I just wanted to let you know what resources you have available to you. This is when I'm available, et cetera, et cetera. But using Microsoft Excel and Word in conjunction in mail merge is a great way to personalize that outreach to, again, create that culture of caring and support. We need these students to feel like they're truly being held by you guys. And little things like that are the way to do it, okay? Another tip for you for emails is, I know that families are getting slammed right now with emails. You guys are getting slammed right now with emails. if you need a student to do something, if they're not logging into their Google Classroom to do their work, you might want to put in the subject title, action requested, if you want to be nice, or action required if you want to prove, like if you want to get your point across, right? But that's something that you might want to do to elicit some more attention, so that the student will click on the email and read what it is that you have to say. I wouldn't abuse this power, but if there's something that you really need to get out there, that might be a nice way to nudge them. Response requested, something like that, in the subject of the email. That worked out very well for me as an online school counselor. Make sure that when you're calling students, by the way, that you are dialing *67 if you're using your private cell phone. At this point, I think districts have determined, how school counselors will be reaching out to their students via phone. You might be using a Google Voice number. You might be using a district communication or phone service. But if you are calling them from your cell phone for whatever reason, *67 is a great way to block your number so that they don't have your personal information. And again, make sure that you have a bilingual liaison or staff member available for those outreach calls with your non-English speaking families. Just remember that when you're on the phone with families, or if you're on the phone in a counseling session, that it's not it's not as scary as some of us might think it is, right? Because we're so used to seeing students in front of us. But we have all been on the phone with a loved one who has needed comforting in the past, right? We've all comforted somebody on the phone before. So this is where we're going to tap into those verbal cues. We're going to, affirm them by saying, I see, I know, I understand. Yeah, right? You're going to be pros at that by the end of this, but I'm sure all of you already are. You can paraphrase what they're saying to check to make sure that you're understanding what they're saying, right? It's totally communication 101. And I honestly believe that by the end of all of this, we are all going to be way better counselors because of this experience. Just keep that in mind, right? When you're connecting with students as well, especially in a video conferencing room like this, it's really important, if you want to establish that connection with the student, that you're looking directly into the camera. Like that little black abyss that is your camera lens, right? It feels unnatural, but when you look at them, like I'm looking at you right now, they're feeling seen. And that's really important, instead of looking at them on the screen like this, right? I'm not sure if you can really see my face, it might be small, but just that little thing is another way that you can virtually connect with a student and make them feel a little bit more seen in a very weird time for them. So just keep that in mind as well. And then finally, social media is a great way to connect with students. And this is based on your comfort level, right? You're not expected to do any of these, things like have a Facebook or a Twitter, but it's a great way to connect with students on their level. Instagram, this is like listed in order of like how hip and cool and young it is. And we end with TikTok, right? Which is just a foreign land for so many of us. But this counselor has this TikTok account, and I love her because she has like 40-something thousand followers. So obviously kids love her too. She delivers little bits of information. There she is. Yeah, so that's one way. We're not telling you to go out and do this, but if you're comfortable with it, if social media is your thing, this is a great way to deliver information to students using a platform that they will easily digest and are already using right now. And TikTok is just off the chain right now with students on lockdown. So if you want to get to them, this is a very quick way to. They will respond to that and they will watch that. So just a heads up there.
Okay, so now we are going to get into the resources. As a reminder, anytime you see this chain, that means it's a link. So just click on the image or the text and it will take you to the specific website. So let's go ahead and get started. So B has already mentioned some tools, tech tools that you could utilize. One option, if you do not want to use your phone and your district is not providing you with a phone, because I know that is a lot for a district to do for a lot of different people. Our counselors utilize Google Voice. With Google Voice, your district does have to have a license in order to have it. And if they don't, another option is if your district approves, you're creating a personal Gmail account to be able to establish one. I have a really detailed infographic here that really outlines specifically how you can establish a Google Voice number. And pretty much what Google Voice is, if you set it up, it will provide you with a phone number that you can utilize and give out. It creates, it has its own voicemail. So when people call it, they can leave voicemail messages and it gets sent to you. The best part about it that I've found is that sometimes when they're calling and you're not really sure who it is, you could answer the phone and they can say ahead of time who it is. So that way, when you pick it up, you'll say, call from, and then it'll say the name, and then you can decide whether or not you want to take it or if you want it to go straight to voicemail. Another thing that it does too is when people do leave voicemail messages, it does email you specifically what was said, so that way you can have access to that. And again, if you need to be able to see what that is and how to set that up, you can just click on here, that top link. Another resource that I've included for you, it's really important for me, like I said, our counselors were feeling overwhelmed because it's a lot of new information. Not only were they providing support and going to a lot of meetings, they were also having to learn how to utilize all these different programs. So it's really important for me to ensure that they are setting boundaries for themselves. And so one of the things that I had them do right away is making sure that they set up a do not disturb on their Google Voice. And so Google Voice allows you to set a schedule. So if you set the schedule from, let's say, 3 o'clock, which is after you finish working, if that's after you finish working, to let's say 8 o'clock in the morning, it won't ring at all. It will go straight to your voicemail. So if you want directions on how to do that, that link that I had clicked on takes you here. Again, you create the schedule. You could indicate Monday through Friday, so that way your phone's not ringing on weekends and again after hours. To set up your voicemail, you have a way to customize the voicemail similar to how you would do with your office phone. If you want to personalize it is what I would recommend, because it is a new number. And so it's always helpful for families to know who it is that they're calling. All you have to do is follow these directions and it will take you there if your district approves with you utilizing Google Voice. So again, you have access to that. And as I had mentioned earlier, it allows you to have a voicemail message. So this is a sample again from the awesome counselors from Redondo Beach School District. I've of course indicated on here, just didn't include their phone number specifically. So you can actually customize this, create your own message. You want to include your school, you want to include your contact information, other ways in which they could reach you. But this is an example of an alternate way to leave a message and making sure that it's super detailed, so that way your families know who they're calling. If you are if you're like me and more of a visual person and you want to see kind of a tutorial on how to set it up, all you have to do in order to make that happen is click on that link that I just clicked on, and it will take you to a tutorial that will show you step by step on how to set it up. This is what I utilize to be able to create my account. And again, it's really step by step for those visual people that really want those directions on how to set it up, and it'll show you kind of how to be able to do that. So you can follow this.
It'll show you how to sign up and get it set.
So again, as a reminder, if you get an error message when you try to set it up, if this is something that you want to do, that most likely means that your district doesn't have the license. Again, checking with your district to see if they can get the license for it. And if they can't, if they approve you utilizing creating a personal Gmail account, making sure you get that approval first, you can do that as well too. And it's all free, you don't have to pay for it. So one of the other ways in which you can connect with students, as Bea mentioned earlier, is through Google Hangout. And so Google Hangout allows you to do video conferencing, webinars. This is where you can have individual and group counseling if you have those. Again, for group counseling, we recommend psychoeducational, so it's not too intense. And for Google Hangout, you have the ability, as Bea mentioned earlier, to have a waiting room, so that way no one comes in and interrupts you while you're in a session with a student. So again, for those that, again, like me, need a step-by-step direction on how to access it, we've included a link on here, a detailed tutorial on how to be able to set that up for your specific school. Hopefully your district has already decided upon a form that they're going to utilize for conferencing. And if you're a Google district, you probably already know about this. But again, we have resources and tutorials linked for you here. All you have to do is click on this image or at the top, and it will take you specifically to it. If you are not a Google district, another free form that you can utilize, right now Zoom allows educators to get it for free, I think for 3 months or so. So Zoom is the form that actually we're using today. Again, it's for video conferencing, webinars, again, individual and group counseling. And I know there's been a lot of things coming out now with Zoom bombers and people kind of coming in and interrupting your sessions. And so there are lots of precautions that you can put into place if you're utilizing Zoom. All you have to do is click on this link that says individual and group counseling, and Orange County Department of Ed, which is within our county, has created this great resource that tells you kind of how to stop Zoom bombers and security measures that you can put into place. So that way, you know, you don't have just anyone just dropping in, and making sure that, you know, you're making it private. You know, you're stopping certain features so that way others won't have the freedom to do as many different things as possible. So that way you have as much control as possible. So again, we have this resource here for you on how you could help security measures, on how you could help prevent Zoom bombers. And then if you want to try it out, again, making sure your district approves, all you have to do is click on that link, and it will take you to how to get a free account. If you are an educator, all you would have to do is fill out this information, and it will give you access to a free account. I'm a adjunct professor over at Brandman University, and Zoom is what we use, and it is wonderful and super user-friendly as well too. Google Classroom is another way to house your materials. Again, your district may already have an identified tool to be able to utilize, but this is the one that in our district that we currently utilize. And again, for Google Classroom, we have another tutorial here for you. If you're not really sure on how to set it up, you can go ahead and follow this directions. In our schools, we have really large schools within our district, and our counselors are like, oh my gosh, I don't want to have to enter the names individually to add students. You don't have to do that. If you have a really tech savvy person within your district, in our district, we have a tech department that we were able to reach out to. They were actually able to get us a query of all of our students divided up by the different grade levels. And all we had to do is identify, all we had to do is copy the email addresses. They sent us a query. All we had to do is export that query to an Excel document, get all the email addresses, and dump it into Google Classroom all at once. And this tutorial shows you how to mass add students, so you don't have to add them individually. We would recommend, if you have a large school, Google Classroom only holds, I think, up to about 1,000 students, but they only allow you to add approximately about 250 students at a time. And then you have to wait a whole other up to 24 hours to add more. So just kind of keep that in mind if you get an error message as you're adding students. You could also share the Google Classroom code with students as well too. But the fastest way to do it, I would say, is mass add them and then share the code with them, so that way they have both ways to be able to do that. So again, the first link shows you how to mass add, and then the last link at the bottom is again another tutorial on how to be able to set that up for your specific district, if your district permits it. And again, like I said, every district has something different, but we wanted to at least share a forum with you so that way you know. So again, step-by-step tutorial on how to do that, completely free, don't have to worry about paying. All right, so another tool that I've actually been utilizing for the last 5 years is Calendly. Calendly is amazing. If you don't have a secretary, which I'm sure at this point, your secretaries probably are at home too, working. But the fastest way to be able to have students and parents make appointments with you, I would say, is Calendly. Some people utilize Sign Up Genius. I love Calendly specifically because Calendly allows you to be able to do lots of different things. We'll show you an example here of B's appointment center. So again, All you have to do is share your Calendly link after you set it up with your students and your families. And in order for them to be able to make an appointment, all they have to do is go to your calendar. After they go to that link, click on the available date that they want, and it shows you the various different times that you would be available. The great thing with Calendly, if you do it right, it does link up to your calendar. So that means if people were to book an appointment, it will automatically transfer. If you integrate it with your calendar, it will automatically transfer to your calendar. So that way it blocks out that time, so people don't double book you. And like I said, it's literally like having a secretary, but it does all the work for you. So again, to access the website, all you have to go is click on here. There is a free version that allows you to set up appointments. There are premium features if you want to have multiple different types of appointments. But if you're a counselor, again, you probably just need one way to be able to set that up. And if you want to be able to, again, get the tutorial on how to set up Calendly, all you have to do is click on this link. It will take you there. But I love Calendly. Like I said, this is what I use. I put on there my availability and our counselors for our site visits, just to select kind of what time works for them and what date works for them. And like I said, it automatically adds it to your calendar. Amazing. I utilized Sign Up Genius before, but like I said, Calendly has a lot more features in terms of calendar integration than Sign Up Genius. So that's the reason why I stuck with that one. So again, this is what our counselors utilize currently within our district to make appointments with students, as well as parents as well. The other amazing tool that I absolutely love, it's all about keeping students engaged during a virtual setting. So in order to be able to keep students engaged, one of the things that does that is videos, right? The only thing about it is, you don't want to necessarily play a video for too long without kind of getting their feedback. What Edpuzzle does, it turns videos into lessons. So, and you can make assignments out of it as well too. So I'm going to show you just a quick little tutorial.
Edpuzzle allows you to do just that, giving you the advantage of customizing and personalizing videos to promote active viewing. This free web-based tool allows you to crop, annotate, and remix online videos, whether they're for flipped learning, for independent viewing, or for full group instruction. First, upload your own video or choose from their vast and vetted library. Then have at it. You can crop and slice together the parts of the video you want your students to focus on. Now let's say you just want to reinforce a key point or further explain an idea. Just add your own voice into the mix with audio notes and voiceovers. Check for understanding and get formative feedback by adding polls or multiple choice questions throughout the video. Give visual cues by adding
Okay, so again, lots of different things that you can do with that. The links will take you directly to the website. And the other thing is Screencastify. If you want to record PowerPoint presentations, record lessons that you're doing, Screencastify allows you to record your screen, so that way students can see the lesson that you're presenting, and then it could also have you in the corner there as well too, so students can see your face. If you're doing second step, you could actually show some of the the animals that they utilize, the bunny and the snail, so that way they can actually see it. Again, to access the tutorial on how to do that, all you have to do is click on the links at the top as well as the bottom. They do currently offer a free account. In order to be able to get the free account, all you have to do is click on this page. Once you click on this page, it tells you the code that you would enter. You enter that code and it will take you, and it will give you access to unlimited recording. If you utilize the version that is not upgraded, it will only allow you to record up to 10 minutes. But if you upgrade for free temporarily during this epidemic, you are able to record unlimited. So just kind of keep that in mind. Step-by-step directions are here. It's really important too, because your students are going to be emailing more. One of the quick PSAs that you could do, or webinars that you could do, or quick recordings that you could do that you could share out with students, is helping them with etiquette. So teaching them, how do you do emails in a adequate way, and making sure that they are really aware on how to do it in a formal way, I should say. So again, this is like a quick step-by-step infographic. You could post this on your website. Again, create a quick little PSA on how you can do that. So that way students understand and know the etiquette on how to do an email in an appropriate way. Another great resource as well too, again, it's really important, and what we're finding is that there's starting to be a lot of behavioral issues, and students who didn't have behavioral issues before are now having behavioral issues now. So it's really important as school counselors, as educators, to set the expectation up early on. So one of the things we've included for you is online class etiquette, and this could be utilized in any one setting. And so for this, it's really important to help students understand. It's really important to be prepared, check the tech beforehand, make sure they're checking their surroundings to make sure there's nothing inappropriate in place. I always say dress appropriately. I know for me, in doing webinars, my first one that I did with my team, I was like, okay, let me just see how it is. And, you know, I put on a nice shirt, had my pajama pants on. I figured, okay, they can't see my pajama pants. And then while I was doing the webinar with them, my dog started making noise. So I went to let her out the door, forgot I had my pajama pants, and everyone saw me in my pajama pants. So really important to dress appropriately. I always say dress completely because you never know what will happen. You may need to get up, right? Also tell participants to be able to make sure they mute themselves so that way there are no interruptions. Headphones always best, because if they have lots of family members, it helps dull out the noise. That's if they have them. A lot of them have the little earbuds. Reminding them to pay attention, stay focused, be an active participant. They could always type in the chat. That's a great way to be an active participant. And making sure what they're sharing is truly relevant to the discussion and not putting anything inappropriate. You do have the capability to stop people from, you know, engaging if they're not being appropriate. If you want access to this, again, all you have to do is click on this image and it will take you to a PDF version of it that you can utilize and customize. The other thing is virtual school counseling rules. Again, setting those expectations, webinars, it's really important to be able to do that ahead of time. So same thing as you would do in a face-to-face setting for group counseling, making sure what's said in here stays in here, even though we know we can't guarantee it, but it helps to say it, right? No screenshots or recording of the group sessions. We want to make sure we're being transparent. Typically, though, if students are recording, we can see the little red dot at the top. But if we set that expectation up early on, there will be hopefully no surprises. Clarifying to the counselor as well as group members to prevent misunderstanding of body language and cues, which we know can be misinterpreted online. Again, headphones help. Having them be in a private area, right away, if we could say, hey, you know, it's really important. We want to make sure this is as private as possible. So if you can go to a part of your house that is a little bit more private, setting that expectation up early does help. And again, being respectful of group members. Again, if you click on this link, it will take you to a PDF version that you could use how you want. Okay, B, how do we make stuff engaging?
So I love this meme, especially if you have younger students, because this is what it feels like when you're in a video conferencing room with them. I don't know if you've done any group or meetings yet with your younger kids, but it's chaos, right? It's chaos in the home. They're running around, you know, students really don't know what to do. So how are we going to get them engaged and pull them in so that they're with you and they're not running around amok going crazy? So let's talk about some engagement tools that you can use to really pull those students in. And before I start, I'd like to say a couple things about these tools that you're going to see in front of you, okay? First of all, by no means is this a checklist that you as a counselor need to check off. You are not responsible for learning every tech tool that is out there. It is an overwhelming amount of information, and nobody is expected to be an expert in all of these things, right? You know what you like, you know how you teach and how you learn and how you deliver support. And so this is merely a menu for you to draw from based on what sounds good to you and what you might want to use. And if you don't want to use any of them, more power to you, that's okay, right? Just remember to give yourself grace and to know that these are just fun tools that you can use, but you don't have to. I'm going to use an analogy for this that I thought of that I keep comparing it to in my mind. But as we're dealing with this crisis right now, as counselors, right? We're helpers. We are in the helping profession and we are on the front lines right now. But as we're dealing with this, I want you to think of it this way, okay? So the wedding, this is my analogy, is not off, right? The wedding is not off. Your partner has not left you. Okay, all that good stuff is still going to happen. You're still going to get married. You're still going to move on and be happy. It's just that you happen to plan a garden wedding in April but you forgot that you lived in Wisconsin and there's going to be a blizzard, right? And so we're just going to have to pivot a little bit. Wedding's still going to happen. It's still on. It's just we're pivoting to an indoor venue instead of outdoor, right? All the good things, the outcome is still the same. It's just we have to switch up a little bit what it's going to look like. That is it. So when you're looking at these options, just know that you don't have to add any of these things to make your delivery of support any more rich than it already has been all the years that you have been counseling. They're just options to make it a bit easier for you and maybe a little bit more fun for not only the students, but for you as well. So with that being said, let's go into the first one. Kahoot. Some of you might have already used it. Maybe you used it while you're at a conference, right? I know that a lot of conference presenters have been implementing a lot of these tools to engage the audience. So Kahoot is a really cool game-based learning app. Students can play individually or in teams, so that can make it really fun if they're playing together in teams, and yes, they can do that online, but you can poll them, you can quiz them, you can ask them, various things so that you're making sure and you're checking for knowledge, and you're making sure that they're demonstrating a certain level of knowledge based on whatever lesson it is that you're delivering. It's really engaging, and it's a fun way for you to collect data, right? They're having fun and you're collecting data at the same time. And again, it's a quiz-based app. So think of it as that. It's quizzes. It's just a fun like trivia game that students can play. And right now, Kahoot Premium is free to educators. So if you want to take advantage of their cool, unique features that allow you to actually get more advanced reports for your data collection, you can totally take advantage of that right now because they're allowing educators to have Kahoot Premium for free. So take advantage of that if you want. Another great tool is Mentimeter. Like Kahoot, it allows you to get real-time responses from your students as you present. You can create polls, you can create quizzes, word clouds like the one that you're seeing on the screen right now. It's a really nice way to read the room, especially before you start an event or a session with students or a lesson with students. It's a great way to read the room, and it's a visualization of their thoughts, right? So another way to kind of get students engaged and get a sense of where they are. Free right now with unlimited audience members. So you can poll as many people as you want using this feature for free. Poll Everywhere is another feature that you can use. Again, there's a lot of polling tools that you can use just to get a sense of where they're at. You can Q&A them, they can vote, you can create word clouds using Poll Everywhere. You can have them students can either visit a URL or text a response. So that's a very fast way of accessing the content for them. It's free right now, but it's limited to 25 audience members. So this is better for smaller groups. Flipgrid is a video conversation app. Really fun. It's a great classroom application that allows you to respond to a prompt using a video. Students have up to 90 seconds to respond to a prompt that you give them. This can be placed within your Google Classroom to be a conversation starter or to be, just part of an assignment. This is really great for students who are reluctant to be live on video and to participate. It allows them to respond while feeling safe, but also still engaging and participating just like everybody else. And it is also free for all educators, I think always. Padlet is another great tool. I know a lot of counselors use it, a lot of educators use it. It's a really good way to tap into a group's thinking. It's basically like a corkboard. Think of it as a corkboard where people are just posting up their ideas and putting on Post-it notes. So another great collaboration tool to use for students, something that you can assign before a lesson to get a read on what students want to learn, what they're curious about learning. It's a great place for them to brainstorm. They can add photos, URLs, documents, videos, music. So it's a really great way for students to get together and think together. Also free, is always free. So Twidla is really neat. Twidla is a whiteboard sharing app. And the cool thing about this is you create a Twidla session, it's free, and you can pull up a URL. I used to like to use Teens Health a lot with my students. So if you're talking to a student about anxiety, you can actually pull up a website together, and the student can actually manipulate the page in front of them and draw on it and highlight things. So as you're going over maybe a website together, students can highlight and underline key phrases so that they're learning specific things that you want them to learn. And finally, Pear Deck. I am Pear Deck's biggest fan. They are not paying me to talk about them right now, but I just created an 8th grade career lesson using Pear Deck, and it is the most comprehensive and engaging presentation tool I've ever used. It will integrate with Google Slides and PowerPoint. So if you're using either of those right now, it's an add-on basically that you can use to make a presentation extremely interactive. Students log on their end using their computer to your slides, and it is interactive for them. So everything they're doing is just for them. It's saved for them, and you're able to have them complete little draggable activities like this one. You can have them complete writing assignments within your slides. You can pull them and gather data, and all of this is exportable at the end of the presentation. And what's even cooler is every student who logs in with their Google account and is participating in this, at the end of the day, they will get a shareable doc created for them, slide by slide, of all of the work that they did. And it's a worksheet with a summarization at the end of it, and you'll get that as well. And you can share that with their teacher or use it for your own data collection. Pear Deck Premium is free right now for 90 days to all educators. It is an excellent tool. I highly recommend that you look into it. And again, it's free for 90 days and it's premium. So it's worth a shot just to look at it, and something that you can implement even after this chaos is all over. You can use it just in a regular presentation.
For success. So how do you set yourself up for success? It's really important making sure you're in a quiet room whenever you're about to do a video conferencing. Again, headset really does help to dull out any noise that's in the background. If you have, if you're not using a headset, if you have a white noise, you can have that in the background, so that way your attendees are not distracted. Keeping in mind too, sometimes fans that are above you might be a little bit distracting, also have sound to them. So making sure you're kind of checking for that. TV noises in the background, really important. Kids get really distracted really easily. So if you have all of that addressed early on, it will help minimize the distraction. Cover windows if possible. Sometimes with the sun coming in, it could, you know, even though it makes you look like you're on the spotlight, it can really impact them seeing you clearly. So kind of keeping that in mind. Keep in mind too, objects that are view of the screen, you want to make sure things that are in view are truly appropriate. If maybe your room's not set up for that, Zoom allows you to have a virtual background. So that's something you can test out to see if that's something you would like to use. I know for me, because I teach online at night, sometimes my daughter comes in because she wants to be with, play in the same area that I play in. So I typically will utilize a virtual background so that way she can do her thing and I can continue to teach. Again, I mentioned earlier, dress appropriately. And for those of you who have kids at home who are a little bit older, it always helps to, and even for your spouse or your roommate, whoever may be living with you, to let them know when you are in session. It helps limit interruptions. So we've included here for you some example signs that you could put up right outside so that way they know. I know sometimes my husband knocks, but by having this, now he knows if the sign's up, you know, not to come in. We have that for just someone who is doing general support. And then if you're doing counseling, there's one for counseling as well too that you can put outside your door so that way others know. Really important, arrive early, test connectivity, tech issues always, so it's always important to do that. Posting and stating confidentiality limits to that the same way as you would do in person is always important. And as Bea mentioned earlier, try to keep, find out where your camera is. I know for me, I didn't realize that when I was looking at my screen, I didn't realize that it was impacting kind of how people were, it didn't look like I was looking at them. So really important to find out where that camera is on your screen and making sure that when you're presenting, you're looking at your presentation, but then you're also at some point too looking at the camera. So some other examples of messaging and other resources that is at your disposal. We have some amazing, talented counselors out there. Jasmine as well as Marlene over at Marshall Middle School that created this amazing infographic that outlines all their different services so that way families know. They have this posted on their website. This is just an example. This could actually be created via PictoChart. We have it here, or Canva. And those are two resources that are free. Again, you can make it customizable for your school to highlight what the counseling services are. This is another example of a letter that went home that kind of outlines the various different supports and how students can get connected with you, that you could also take and utilize and customize. It really lays it out nicely. Messaging for parents about resources. I know a lot of you will have access to a ton of different resources. So again, the amazing counselors over the middle schools at Redondo Beach created these various different resources for parents and families to be able to access, easy access to these resources of different things that they can do. Another great resource that you could utilize as well to customize for your school, Vanguard Academy created this resource. They have this posted on their website. Again, you could have it posted on your website, your Google Classroom, about lots of different subject areas if maybe students wanted to further hone in on their skills. And it has it in Spanish as well too, for those people who would prefer to utilize some of the Spanish tools. For students, again, it's really important for students to know what resources are available to them. So in addition to posting it on our website, you can actually have this, something like this in your Google Classroom, where it tells them, it gives them access to the various different apps that they have at their disposal to manage stress and anxiety. And then it kind of gives them tips on how to address academic related concerns. That's one example. And another example for student message, another group created actual presentation. So this is an example of a PowerPoint presentation that kind of outlines the services. It outlines kind of what to do to help manage anxiety, again, at your disposal to be able to utilize if you so choose. A check-in form, as Bea mentioned earlier, it's really important to check in with students who are high risk, see how they're doing. If you want to kind of keep track of it for your own records, again, I don't recommend sharing with others kind of what other students tell you, but if you want to kind of keep track, because you may be calling a lot of students, it kind of, this check-in family form allows you to keep track of it, lets you know what number you dial, lets you know the disposition of this, it lets you know kind of how the family is handling the situation. Kind of like a quick log that you can kind of keep track of. I don't recommend you share this with anyone. This is just for your own confidential notes. And if you do call students and you're providing counseling, I always say find out their location ahead of time, just in case it becomes suicidal. It becomes a suicidal case. You have the capabilities to make sure you're referring that student to the appropriate support, and you know their location and phone number. Email signature is always good to have that, your contact information there. This is an example of B's that includes the suicide prevention hotline. Again, we talked about letting families know about your contact information, as well as what to do in case of emergency. So this has not only her phone number, her email address, the website, how to make an appointment with her. So again, if you have Calendly or Sign Up Genius, you can utilize that. And then it also includes the suicide crisis hotline, or whatever hotline it is for your districts. In terms of counseling referrals, again, students can't just drop in and see you at this point, just because of course you're not on site. And so it's always helpful to have a counseling referral that outlines all the information. We utilize this in our district anyways, and our counselors, this is how they collect data to find out what types of issues they're getting, what types of students they're getting referred to them, and which department is referring to them the most. And so this is broken down. This is a secondary version. You can customize this and make it into yours, but it tells you what department. It tells you if it's a student, administrator, or a parent referring. It has the student identify their name. If it's not a student referring, are they aware? If it's a parent or a teacher, a grade level, has you identify kind of what the concern is. This was created via Google Forms that you can take and customize for your own. The level that the student is at, and then a checklist of different types of issues and what steps may be that has already been taken if it's a staff referring. So that's at your disposal. The other resource that you have too is a check-in form. This is one of the things that all of our middle school counselors did. Our elementary had something different and our high school had something different. For our middle schools, this is what we had all of our middle school counselors do, just to be able to kind of assess the needs. How is the student doing? Each student filled this out. You know, how are you doing with the school closure right now? Rating 1 to 5, awful to feeling fantastic, and then addressing what their specific needs are. And they actually have an opportunity to type it in as well too. Are they utilizing their coping strategies? Our counselors teach stress management, so we're asking them are they utilizing it, ways that they could be contacted, preferred ways, we include that on here, and then they submit it. And so this is a great way for us to find out specifically what the needs and concerns of our students are. Another thing that's really important, initially, you know, in our minds, we're like, okay, this is what we think the families need, but the reality is we don't live in their homes. We're not seeing them face to face. So it's really important for us to make sure that the information we're giving them is applicable to them and their needs. So this needs assessment allows you to be able to do so. This is for secondary. You could change this to state your specific grade levels, but it has them identify, you know, personal related concerns, you know, to what degree this is a concern for you in terms of, do you want more information about? So that way you can ensure the information you're posting on your website, the information you're hosting webinars about is really applicable to the needs of your community. It's broken down too by school concerns, college and career concerns, so the 3 different domains. And then for stress levels, because we know for some people stress levels are high, indicating kind of to what degree, what type of stress that they're experiencing. And then an open-ended question at the end for them to answer any concerns maybe that we did address. This has been super helpful, at least within our district, because through this we've been able to say, oh my goodness, this is really the area that our students are really having issues with. And because of that, we've been able to make sure we've been very deliberate in and intentional with the type of information we're giving them. So again, you'll have access to that. Google Classroom, as I mentioned earlier, Bea had shared this with you. It's some example lessons from Redondo Beach Unified School District. And then the County Offices of Education Leadership for school counselors created this wealth of resources around academic, career, social, emotional. It is like the mother lode bank of resources right at your disposal. And it's all indicated on here. It's all free. And a lot of these resources, all you have to do is click on it. It'll take you directly to the specific site. So if you want to explore more, we thank them so much for their hard work in putting that together. This is again going to be at your disposal. For Second Step, if your district does Second Step, this is a great resource for you. If they don't do Second Step and you want to be able to utilize some of their resources, they've actually recorded some lessons that all you would need to do is go to their website. And in order to be able to access their lessons, all you have to do is click on this link, and it'll take you to some of the lessons that they've actually already recorded that you all could get for free. So we've included a link to that for you if you want, let's say, first grade, and Second Step is for K through 8, but this specifically is for kindergarten. It'll take you to lessons that counselors have already developed that you can access if you're a Second Step district. And then, like I said, even if you're not, you have the capabilities to be able to still access that information. And then websites, again, we had mentioned it's always important to make sure your websites are fully comprehensive and has a lot of information on there, so that way students and parents could access it at any point. This is a fantastic website done by one of our CASC board members, Amy, and she did such a great job. She included coronavirus resources, SEL resources, and again, just a great example of an elementary website that you could access and be able to see a model of what it looks like. A middle school website we have for you here as well too. This is one of our school counselors, amazing school counselors, Lindsay Morris over at Vista Del Mar Middle School. Again, she also included various different resources tied around COVID-19, community resources, and she actually included, she does virtual check-ins as well that students could drop it at any point. So lots of different resources and tools for you here. And then a sample website for high school specifically, our high school counselors over at Capital Valley High School in our district created a specific website, a Google website, same thing as Lindsay and Amy created a Google website. And again, that's free, specifically for issues around virtual and distance learning. All you have to do is click on this, it'll take you to the website. They have a ton of resources specifically for students around academic, college and career, as well as social emotional. And then resources again for families as well too on how they can help support their kids during this time. And then the last thing that we wanted to share with you is professional learning opportunities. There's a ton of free opportunities out there. Ashley, who is our CASC president has assembled together all these different webinars that are accessible. She has the dates outlined, as well as the ones that are free and ongoing that's currently just posted on the website that's available at any point that you can access. And all you have to do is click on these links and it'll take you specifically to those websites. So again, this is a great opportunity to engage in lots of professional learning, just because there will be times in which you, once things settle a bit and you've built all your different resources, you'll have a little bit of downtime to engage in that. Last but not least, this will feel overwhelming. No one understands that that's going to be normal. This is new for a lot of people. So it's really important to engage in self-care. And so acknowledge and address your anxiety. Again, you're not alone in this. However, try to utilize positive self-talk as much as possible. You got this, you can do this. Again, it will get better. It's not going to feel like this forever. Seek supervision when necessary. Really important to connect with others. If you're a small district or you don't really have many connections, there's lots of opportunities out there. CASC, for one, has an opportunity to be able to collaborate with various different counselors from across the nation. It doesn't have to just be CASC members. We have another one coming up April 16th. It's all online and it gives you access to the Zoom ID that all you have to do is log in and you can be able to get connected with other counselors from across the nation. CASC has also created a self-care challenge that you do different things each day to ensure your self-care. Take care of your health, make sure you're eating lunch. Sometimes when we're at the computer screen all day, sometimes we forget to eat lunch, as we do really in our office, but it's really important to take care of your needs, disconnect. I know over the weekend, I'm like, I don't want to look at the computer. I've been on the computer all week, but I did for a little bit, but making sure you set those boundaries and you disconnect, especially because you're at the computer all the time. And whatever it is that works for you, making sure that you're engaging in that as well too, in terms of self-care regimen, whether it's, you know, exercising, whatever it may be, make sure you're still holding true to that. So at this point, we're just gonna go ahead and open it up. I know we have gone a little bit over, and so we'll just kind of open this up at this point with anyone that has questions. And if anyone does have to leave at the end, we'll share a link with you that will be going to your email if you don't mind completing our evaluations for us, so that way we can get feedback, and so that way we can understand what your needs are to be able to offer future webinars to help support you. So we'll go ahead and open it up now, Leslie.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Bea, so much for the amazing presentation. I know everyone was probably taking notes like crazy. We are experiencing a little bit of a difficulty with the link to the actual presentation, that the hyperlinks are not working. We are aware of it. We'll fix it. Don't worry. And we'll have that up and running in no time, just so you know.
I'm sorry, Leslie. Also, just for you guys to know, on the PDF, don't click on the actual hyperlink icon. That's not where the link is. The link is located on the highlighted text. So the hyperlink is just indicating that the text is linked, but the little icon itself is not where the link is. So some of you might be confusing those two things, and we apologize for that misunderstanding. But if you actually click on the highlighted link or the highlighted text, right, that is where you can find the live link. It's not actually on the chain icon itself.
Thanks for that explanation, Bea. So I appreciate those who are sticking around for this Q&A portion. So Bea and Rebecca, we're getting some questions about the actual logistics of checking in with students, sure, particularly like picking up the phone and calling. Like, do you pick up the phone and just start talking right there to the student? Do you make an appointment? And kind of if you can address what that would look like for elementary school age students. We have some elementary school counselors in the house that want to know specifically how to connect with their elementary school students.
Sure. Okay. So I would devote time each day to calls, right? Devote an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is. This is what I used to do. I would devote a chunk of my day to making outreach calls. I had an Excel spreadsheet. I ran a query. We called it a report, same thing. I ran a query for all of the students that I needed to reach, in addition to their emails and their phone numbers, house phone number, cell, whatever you have. I create a little section on there for notes and what the outcome of the outreach was. So that's in front of me. I then call the families one by one. If you have 100 students and you have a week to call those students, you got 20 students to call a day, right? You just do the math and you break it up into small little chunks. It's like, how do you eat an elephant, right? It's one bite at a time. So you carve out that little time to call them. If they're younger, you obviously speak to the parent first, because be the primary kind of guide in the student's education on the day-to-day when they're at home. Talk to the parent, you check in with the parent to see how they're doing, and then you again ask if you can speak to the student to check in with them. And at that point, you talk to them, you check in with them, you see what, you know, they're doing, what they're up to, what they might need help with, and you take it from there. But talking to younger students is, you know, basically the parent is the bigger component, is that you're reaching out to them first because they're tiny tots and they need some of that guidance and support. And maybe you, you know, then can speak to the student after that, just you and the student. But as far as check-in goes, I would dedicate time to it. I would have a spreadsheet in front of me of all the people I wanted to reach out to. And I would log all those communications once you're done. Obviously, you don't want to log in details of your conversation, but you want to say if the line was busy, if you had to leave a message, if you called parent cell, student cell, grandma cell, uncle cell, you know, whatever it is, you want to indicate how you try to reach out to them and whether or not it was successful for your own records, and to make sure that you're doing your due diligence and that is being recorded. That's very important, especially for students who don't respond and you're having trouble reaching them. You have that log of all the times you tried to reach out through different means, right? And if they're not getting back to you, I would strongly recommend mail. I know that's not feasible for everybody, especially with the logistics of not having office personnel necessarily. But if you can, if it's a really, you know, unique case, perhaps mailing home a letter with some resources is the way to go if you just cannot reach somebody. And obviously, if you're concerned, perform a welfare check. If they have gone off the grid and they've gone dark and you need to make sure that they're okay, it's perfectly acceptable to perform a welfare check at that point.
And just to clarify, B, when you say perform a welfare check, I think some of our counselors are wondering what that looks like. And so can you speak a little bit about that? Because I know that different districts have different protocols and how you would go about initiating that welfare check.
Right. And it will depend on your district and what your protocol is, right? Because you might be utilizing your student resource officer. You might be able to call your local non-emergency line for, you know, your local police department or law enforcement agency to ask for a welfare check. That's what I used to do because I had students all over the state. So I would have to have the non-emergency line for all of the counties with which I worked. And then I would just ask them to perform a welfare check. I used to actually email families that I couldn't get in touch with, and this was actually rare for me, where they just would not respond. I would email a final email saying, you know, please respond today. Hey, listen, I've really tried to reach out to you. I'm just concerned about your student. You know, I'd like to perform a welfare check if I don't hear back from you, just to make sure that everybody's okay. If you are okay, call me back or email me. This is how you can reach me. You know, you got to push them a little bit too, if they're just being stubborn about it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We have a few high school counselors inquiring about suggestions on supporting our seniors, whether it's celebrating them, end of the year celebrations, or just mourning how the process that they're going through right now with everything that's going on.
Yeah. Well, the good news is that the COVID-19 CASC website is going to have an entire tab, an entire segment dedicated to mental health. It's pretty exhaustive. I took a look at some of the resources that are being thrown around right now for that, and it's going to be really good. Please refer back to that because there will be actual usable material and resources for you to use and deliver to your students who are grieving, you know, on all different levels. For your seniors, there is curriculum out there for things like, you know, like Commitment Day and like, you know, ways to celebrate students who have gotten into colleges, that will be shared on the website. I know that those links are flying around through, behind the scenes, and that will be available to all of you. So please check that out, because there will actually be lessons and curriculum that you can use and activities that you can use to celebrate students and to make sure that, they're being celebrated right now, the seniors who
And
are
one of the things that we're doing within our district, we've created a PowerPoint that our students are going to be completing a page for, or I should say a slide. And on that slide, it will have their picture. It will have kind of something about them and where they're planning on going or what they're planning on doing. And we're going to try to do something virtually for them as well too. So there's lots of different things that you could do, but that template for the PowerPoint will ensure that we upload that and have that be included in the high school version of it. So that way you have an example of ways to do that. So that's one of the things we're doing, because typically every year we have an award ceremony for our seniors. And so that's the way that we're going to be able to recognize our seniors, is through doing that PowerPoint, a virtual ceremony.
Yeah, that's really great feedback. Thank you so much. And I know we're coming up on time, so I wanted to just cover a couple things. I know some of you are asking about when the COVID-19 K-12 counseling resource page will be live, since we've been mentioning it frequently throughout the presentation. We are, fingers crossed, going to have that live next week. We're really working hard behind the scenes. Like I said, leaders from across the state and across Wisconsin are working really hard to put these resources together for you. In that website, we'll also have sample check-in forms. I know we had a question about that. And so I feel like a lot of your questions in terms of resources and logistics, we are on that and are hoping to get those resources to you as soon as possible.
Yeah, I think that Linda had mentioned in the notes that I don't think the presentation has been shared yet. So just so you know, it's going to be emailed to you in it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so
So
much.
whatever presentation you guys are looking at might be an old presentation. I'm not sure. But Linda will be emailing everyone that is registered to attend the link to the presentation, so everyone can access, and all the links work.
Perfect. And others are asking if the Q&A will be available. And so we'll do our best to compile the questions and answers so that you have those readily available. Since of course we just don't have all the time to answer every question, but we certainly appreciate it. We're reading them and we'll do our best to address them in the future.
So we have our contact information here on the screen. If you ever have questions, feel free to reach out to us. Here's my email address, my Twitter account, as well as Bee's email address. Feel free to reach out to us with any questions. And then we always like to get feedback. So if you don't mind either scanning this code or accessing, typing in this in your phone or your computer to be able to access our evaluation, so that way we could find out what your needs are and figure out what other webinars that we could work together to put for all of you. Thank you so much. It's been such a great chance to be able to share with you some of these resources. And I want to take the opportunity to thank everyone who has been part of this process in developing the website. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye. Have a good afternoon.
Be well. Have an excellent weekend. You guys are awesome. Awesome.